So good afternoon, everybody. Call the Faculty Senate to order. So before we begin, take roll from the divisional campuses. So Potomac State, I see two people there. Very good. So I see two at Potomac State and four at Montgomery. So welcome. We have a quorum today. That's great. We'll move on to the second agenda item, which is approval for the minutes of the December 7th Faculty Senate meeting. So these were distributed with the agenda, so everybody's had a chance to see them. Are there any corrections to the minutes at this point? So, hearing no corrections to the minutes, they will stand approved as written. So I will now invite President Gordon Gee to come to the podium to give his address, or give his report, sorry.
Well, it will clearly not be an address. It is colder than hell out there, isn't it? Come on, let's just admit it. It's cold, and I have been living in a fool's paradise because I thought, well, you know, I could just drive here in 15 minutes, which is what I normally do. I forgot that the students were here and all of the other kinds of things. It's dangerous when they come back. But anyway, it's great to be with all of you today. Beginning of semester, always a time to renew and refresh ourselves, but also I welcome all of you back from various activities, holidays, wherever you've been, and I am very happy that we have good news about the beginning of our semester. First of all, I would just say that I really appreciate the work of everyone here. You know, at the beginning of the semester, we always try to take a look at the numbers and see where we are. It's not about bodies for us. We will always have significant numbers but it's about quality and about numbers that really represent the efforts on behalf of the university to attract the best and brightest. And our applications are up, but they were up as much as about 21% about a week or so ago. So we feel very good about that, and that's a qualitative measure that we are very happy about. You know, there are 4,500 colleges and universities in this country. There are about 100 that have now reached that status of the highest classification by the Carnegie Corporation. We have reached that. That has been a goal of this institution ever since I was here 35 years ago. It took me coming back to make that happen. No, just kidding you, but it's a real tribute to Fred King and to all those who work very hard on our research components, and also, most importantly, it shows the work and the quality of the work that we're doing at this institution. I'm very happy about that. I don't believe, as many of you know, I've said this a number of times, I don't believe in all these rankings. I think what is important for this institution is how relevant we are, what a difference we're making, the quality of life that we're creating, the opportunities that exist for us internally and externally, but nonetheless it is great to be recognized for some of those things. And so it's the beginning of that semester. We're focused on a number of issues. Obviously, we're focused on continuing the quality of our undergraduate experience. We're focused on the quality of our research and teaching and how we recognize that. And I'll say that again. Very important that we understand that we really do need to, and I look at my friend CB, that we really do need to come up with a way for us to recognize each and every person here for the quality of what they do and for the activities they engage in. And also, it's important for us to know that we're in the middle of a legislative session. As you know, the state budget is not promising. The university is very promising, I think, and we'll work very, very hard on that. Our issue for us is, of course, to continue to gain recognition by the state for flexibility, the freedom agenda, as I call it, the Mosaic Law. If you can't give us money, give us freedom, and I really do believe that the opportunities for us abound in that regard. And finally, I want to say that we have a number of faculty who are doing really outstanding things. I want to applaud my my colleague and my friend here, Richard Turton. Now, Richard, of course, has been such a great university citizen, personifies university citizenship, but in his real life, he is a faculty member of this institution and received the Oscar of Innovation. What is it called?
R&D 100.
And I don't know what you did for it, but I know it was very meaningful. But the reason I say that is the fact that I love the fact that the people in this room continue to do great university service by being here with us, by representing their faculty colleagues, and by doing the kinds of things that make this university move well and move forward, but also that in your academic life you continue to perform. Richard, I congratulate you. Saying that, I'm really open to any questions that any of you may have. And I apologize again for running late. I see none. Where's Mark? I'll ask Mark's question. No, just kidding. Anyway, everyone have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, President Gate. So I'll now invite Provost Joyce McConnell to the podium to give her report.
So Happy New Year, everyone. Could you hear that? I'm not in the, there, good, okay. Happy New Year. I wanted to let you know that it has been the practice of the provost's office long before I became the provost to buy West Virginia made chocolates and send it to deans and associate provosts, et cetera. And I decided this year, because our vice president for health sciences has been hammering home to me healthy eating and low calories and fighting obesity, and I just thought, I just can't send out candy, you know, in that context. So I decided to do something very different, and that was in celebration of the arts and the humanities. And rather than sending out a holiday card right before Christmas, which is the tradition, I actually am sending out a New Year's card to the same people, and then to some extras. And I wanted to show it to you because it is one more step forward in our celebration of the arts and the humanities. So it is a card with a Grace Martin Taylor painting. Now everyone asks me why this painting, and the answer is it turns out that when we get agreements for donated paintings to WVU, they often have a restriction on the right to continue to use the image. And so we only have a few exceptions to that, and we are only able to use the image of a few paintings, and this happened to be one. On the inside of it is a poem by one of our own faculty members, Michael Blumenthal, called Life List. And on my greeting, and I'm going to read it to you because I want you to understand how significant it is for me to be celebrating the arts and the humanities. So, and I'm not sending you all one, and that's not because I don't love you, but it is because I'm trying to save money. So my wish for you and all those dear to you in 2016, may you have a joyful and rewarding year, made richer by the gifts of the arts and humanities that we are celebrating this year at WVU. Visit our art museum, read the moving work of our writers, get tickets to a concert or play at our Creative Arts Center. You'll be reminded of just how valuable these disciplines are on our campus and to our world. Happy New Year. So we can just take a minute and just absorb the beauty and the way in which the arts and the humanities help us understand our world and our souls so much better. On the more pragmatic side of things that are going on, you heard that we received from the Carnegie Foundation the ranking of research, it's now called Highest Research Activity, an R1. It's something that many people on this campus have been working very hard for, and we're very, very proud of the achievement. But I want to echo what the president said, because it really does factor so much into how we are trying to move the university forward, and that is that we're always looking for research that matters, right? Research that allows us to push further into things that will make a difference in people's lives, both in West Virginia and in the world. And one of the things I think you've heard us say many times, heard the president say, is West Virginia is small enough and yet big enough to be a laboratory for the rest of the world. And if we can do our research and address problems like obesity or tobacco use or addiction in West Virginia, then we can take those kinds of lessons to the world. The same with our art and our humanity, on our economic development. And so we have just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And we're really, really happy we reached that ranking doing the research that we know that matters and that we're all very committed to. In other words, we weren't hamsters in a wheel, just trying to make sure that we reached the goal. We had a goal that was a goal with meaning, and that means a lot to us and to the state. A couple of other things that I want to talk about, and as Tolstoy wrote in Anna Karenina, spring is the time of plans and projects, right? Not throwing yourself in front of a train. You just don't think about that part of Anna Karenina. Just spring is the time of plans and projects. That's when she was optimistic and thinking ahead. But we do have quite a collection of plans and projects for the spring. Some of them I would really like to just, I guess, renew and re-embrace. And one is this vision of one WVU. And we're moving in that direction in so many different ways. I do want to reflect back on the last year with actually incorporating our faculty and our students in health sciences into one WVU. Last year was the first year that we did promotion and tenure together, and all the HSC files came through my office. It was a very, very successful year. We're very excited about it. I'm excited about doing it again this year. All 100 and whatever it's going to be, CB. We're still counting. We continue in terms of forging this one WVU to be working on important issues like faculty incentives and rewards, looking at how to streamline the evaluation process, and we're making great progress on that. You've heard about the committee that C.B. Wilson is chairing, the Faculty Incentives and Rewards Committee, and Earl Seamy is on that committee. Richard Turton is on that committee. You're not? Lisa DiBartolomeo. I thought you were on that. Okay. Yeah, you've just been hiding, right? Didn't get the memo. Who else? Bob. Okay, great. Thank you. So there's great representation from Faculty Senate, and they're making great progress. I've also put together a pilot group from Eberly. We're examining salary, where we are along our peers, how far away we are from our peers, and where we are in terms of separate disciplines, what it is, the disparity is between teaching professors and tenure track professors. We're looking at faculty inversions and compressions. We're also looking at morale generally. And some wonderful conversations are coming out of that, and we're getting to a point where we're going to be able to share more of that. The other thing that we're doing that we continue to do is our commitment to our communities. For those of you who know a lot about West Virginia or track what's going on in West Virginia, we have really done amazing work in Harpers Ferry after it had a community debilitating fire. In planning WVU's tech's move to Beckley, we're working with the towns of Montgomery and Smithers and the counties of Kanawha and Fayette on partnerships to make sure that they continue to move forward. And of course, we have a project going on in Weirton and on the west side of Charleston. All of these are part of our very important land grant and outreach mission. It's making a huge difference in how the university is being perceived around the state, but that's the least important thing. It's making a huge difference in these communities and in people's lives, and I know we all care very much about that. We are going to be in the midst of budget cuts, and we're going to be very involved in this legislative session. What we want you to know is that we're working very hard to find all the ways that we will not skimp on quality, that we will make changes that need to be made, always with the focus on continuing our quality, and with the big success of becoming a highest research university, we know, and with one of our best years in honors and our best years with ACT, we just have to keep moving forward with our eye on the quality ball. I can't congratulate Richard again because the president did, but thank you for all you do. I do appreciate that. On the dean's updates, I want to tell you that Greg Dunaway is the new dean of the Eberly College of Arts and Sciences, and he will be starting March 31st. But really, he's already in touch with us all the time and working very closely with interim dean Mary Ann Reed. And even though I know Mary Ann isn't here, I want to make sure that in front of all of you, I say that she has done a tremendous job as the interim dean, and I really want to thank her publicly for that. And I do also want to say that we are into our basketball season, and I hope many of you are following our successes in basketball thus far. Don't forget to support the women's team along with the men's. So thank you very much for having me here for the update. Oh yeah, questions. I'm sorry, I always forget. Okay, good. I know we're all recovering from our holiday.
So it shows what a nice person the provost is, because if I were provost for the day, I would have sent the deans a photo of a box of chocolates. Anyway, now it's time for my update. Not too much to report, but I've got a few items. First of all, a reminder to everybody that the Senate research proposals, the deadline for those is February the 8th. So these include the Research and Scholarship Advancement Grants, which were formerly the Senate grants, the Academic Conference grants, the grants for community engagement, and the faculty travel, the second series of the faculty travel and development grants. So those are due February the 8th. The next faculty meeting is February the 8th, so it's no point in announcing it then. So please make sure that your constituents and everybody that you know is aware of this, and encourage them to submit the grants if they're going to do that in a timely fashion, okay? Update on the Senate webpage. I was hoping to be able to show you the new webpage. I'm not able to do that. We're waiting on a couple of additions. I plan to give a little demo next meeting, which will be February the 8th. The eSEI, or the new SEI system, was piloted last semester. Dr. Heather Billings is going to give an update on that, but want you to pay particular attention to this as the new SEI system will be implemented this semester, so it's important that everybody get the word out. I will be sending an email out to everybody saying this is going to happen, but please be aware, because I'm sure it will be of interest to many people. Could possibly be contentious, but I hope not. But Heather will give us an update on that. And I'm planning to tell the deans about this, if they don't already know, at the Provost Council, which was formerly the Dean's Council, on February the 3rd. Welfare Committee met, talked about wellness issues, and met with Tony Christian and Kimberly Zaff from WVU, and also some PEIA reps. Very informative, and we will be bringing Tony and Kimberly to the March Faculty Senate meeting to sort of give an update of all the wellness opportunities that are available at WVU, and I think that'll be very helpful. The ombudsperson that we are planning to hire. The ad for that is almost finished, so that should be finalized this week. So that'll be an internal hire, but that will be going out on our internal website for candidates. So that's moving ahead. And then finally, an announcement, please, it's reflected now in I think the Senate website, but the March meeting was originally scheduled for March 14th. That, because of a conflict here, we've had to move that a week forward, so that will be March 7th. I believe everybody's been informed on that on President and Provost's side of the House, but please make a note of that. Obviously, you'll be getting the updates for that, but it's basically that meeting has been moved a week forward. So with that, I'll conclude my report and stand for any questions. There's a quiet crowd, huh? Okay, so hearing no questions, we'll move on to the next agenda, which is Dr. Matt Valenti with the Curriculum Committee report.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Before I get to the new courses and the alterations, a few announcements. So first of all, the March Faculty Senate meeting, so 2 meetings from now, is the last meeting to get your new courses and programs approved and have them in the fall 2016 catalog. Okay, now this means that to make it onto the agenda for the March meeting, they need to be approved at the February Curriculum Committee meeting. And so the February meeting is February 4th, but you need to get them approved at the dean's level 1 week before then, which would be January 28th. So your dean needs to approve your courses for the fall by January 28th, okay? And then it goes to the curriculum committee, and then it goes to exec. Exec is at February 22nd, and then the March meeting is, was it March 7th, I think? Okay, okay, so that's first announcement. Second announcement, we have been working on a new / revised website. My apologies to Richard. I think we're the laggards that are keeping the entire Faculty Senate site from going up. But our site will be, as you'll see, quite comprehensive. So we're trying to provide guidance in there on how to do just about anything curriculum related, or at least the things that we handle at our committee level, which is all course proposals and undergraduate programs. Okay, so stay tuned for that. We should be able to show this to you at the next Faculty Senate meeting. And then the other thing that we're working on, and this is with in conjunction with the registrar and also the GEC/GEF committee, is some updates to the KIM form. So KIM, of course, is where you go to put in your course proposals. So there's some updates there that include some logic to make sure you properly structure your prerequisites in a manner that makes logical sense. And then the other thing is, let's see, it's going to automatically provide guidance as to whether a change or is either an alteration or a change. So if you make a revision to a course, it'll decide whether it rises to the level of a course change or if it's just merely an alteration, and that'll be done sort of automatically. Okay, so that said, I can move on to what needs to be approved. So Annex 1 is new courses, the new courses report, and submit that for approval.
Okay. So are there any comments or points of discussion for Annex 1? All those in favor of approving Annex 1, please say aye. Those who oppose, say no. Potomac State, how do you vote? And WVU Tech, how do you vote? Thank you. So the ayes have it, and Annex 1 is approved.
Okay. And then the other item is the alterations report, which is for information. So I submit that for filing.
So are there any objections or points of discussion on Annex 2? So since there are no objections, Annex 2 is filed. So thank you, Matt. Okay, so next on the agenda, we have I guess a combined report here from Lisa DiBartolomeo, Lena Maynor, and Oliver Street from the Provost Office. So if they would all come to the podium and wrestle the mic between them, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard, for giving us this time. This is basically just a quickie update. We decided to spare you a PowerPoint presentation and all that good stuff. So basically, we wanted to remind you, in case you haven't been paying attention over the last year, there is a new GEF, right? The General Education Foundations. We all voted for it. It's been approved. It gets implemented this fall for the incoming class. 2016, students coming in will have no choice but to go in under the GEF, the General Education Foundations, right? All of that information is currently housed on the registrar's website. So if you go to the drop-down menu under curriculum, it's at the very bottom, GEF, right under GEC. All the courses have been rolled over. You should be able to look and check and make sure the courses that your unit teaches are all in there, okay? Students who are currently here will have a one-time opportunity working with their advisors to decide whether to stay with the GEC or move to the new GEF. Some of them, depending on how progressed they are, may decide to go with the new one. Some of them may elect to stay with the old one. Probably a lot is going to hinge on whether they've finished their writing class and whether there are enough writing classes to go around at this point. So besides dropping the writing class, keep in mind that the hours have been reduced. There are fewer hours in the new GEF as opposed to the old GEC, and that the first year seminar is no longer included. If you would like an update on first year seminars evolution, probably Associate Provost Sue DesProutes will be telling us about that. Additionally, as you recall from the December Senate meeting, we passed a sharpened idea of what the focus is, right? There are 7 broad areas, subject areas, for the foundations, 1 through 7, and 8 is the focus, and that's 3 classes or 9 hours, and what Senate approved as of December was you can have it be 3 classes from the already approved classes in the GEF list, or to provide additional flexibility and hopefully encourage students to really branch out, they can fulfill the GEF focus with a minor, with a double major, or a dual degree. So there's a lot of opportunity here for programs to get their students to branch out a little bit, to feel out some new opportunities and hopefully some new learning intersections. So, wow, that sounded really bureaucratic, didn't it? And now we're gonna have Oliver talk about Kim.
So to facilitate this process of the new general education curriculum, we have been working with all of the colleges and schools on how they can revise their particular programs to reflect both the credit hour reduction and, if necessary or desired, a reduction in their total credit hours for their individual programs. Many programs have gone down to 120 hours as part of this process, and so this software, of course, is designed to facilitate both the reduction in hours or any other modifications to an individual program's curricula, as well as to faculty being able to submit their courses for review for the new GEF. So we will have available within the next week or so the new form that will allow individual faculty members to submit their either existing courses to the new GEF or to any new courses that they want to be part of the new GEF. So there will be some modifications. There'll be instructions on the Faculty Senate website that will indicate how people can submit their individual courses to be a part of the GEF. As part of this process as well, we of course have to update all audits for students within DegreeWorks, and so we are working with colleges through our validation process over the next couple of weeks so that before the schedule of classes becomes available in early March, that students will be able to see their particular program and decide whether or not they want to go into the new GEF or stay with the GEC. So we will have all of the students' degree audits updated so that they can do a hypothetical determination to decide whether or not they should stay with their current curriculum or move to the new curriculum. So Lena, I think we'll cover.
So I want to give you an update on what we're planning for this semester to wrap up the the pre-implementation phase. The GECCO committee really changed its thought process in terms of criteria for the GEF, and we moved away from a focus of sort of looking at the syllabi and making changes throughout to really focusing on the learning outcomes for the course. And so what we want is for at least one learning outcome for an individual course to map back to one of those 4 LEAP goals. And in doing that, we wanted to move away from the 5-year audit, where we were really taking a look at the syllabus and looking at a lot of things that may or may not really be related to gen ed, and moving more toward a system where we were actively helping instructors in the GEF really focus in on those learning objectives. And so instead of 5-year audits, what we're going to start doing are periodic workshops. The Teaching Learning Commons has worked with the GECCO committee to develop these workshops. They are also going to be used for the GEC courses that were transitioned to the GEF to help them match the criteria for GEF versus GEC. And those workshops are going to start this semester. And so there are 6 dates for workshops. On each date, there'll actually be 8 small workshops. There'll be 2 in the morning, 4 small workshops. 2 in the morning, 1 downtown, 1 at Evansdale, and then in the afternoon, 1 downtown and 1 at Evansdale. And those will be February 9th, February 12th, March 8th, March 11th, April 5th, and April 8th. If you teach in a GEF course, you will get information about how to register for one of those workshops. So that will be forthcoming. Anybody have any questions?
Quick questions. The first one, and you may have already covered it, but a current GEC needs to be reapplied for to be considered for a GEF? Oh, I'm sorry, Nick Bowman, Everly College.
So all of the GEC courses that wanted to move to the GEF have been moved and they've been categorized. So an individual course will still be in the GEF, but eventually we'll want to get as many people as we can through the workshop so that they can revise their syllabus to match the new criteria.
And that's the second question. Is there a set criterion as to like how many workshops or how many within a 5-year term, or if you go to no workshops, would your class fall out of the GEF? Or?
That's an interesting question. The goal is to get all of the courses, which may not actually end up being every instructor for every section, but all of the courses through the workshops in a relatively short time frame. Okay. And then the question remains as to how periodic that will be. One of the things that we're doing that's also new is adding questions to GEF courses on the SEIs that will then, just those questions, just the SEI questions at the course level, not the section level, will be going back to that committee so they can look and see which courses students feel like they're getting the information out of, and that might be used to determine a list of who we invite to participate in future workshops. So that's still being fleshed out a little bit.
Love the idea of the workshops, by the way. That's good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
As the compliance person, I know that's what you were asking about, Nick, is I think right now it's that a course can be out of compliance essentially at maximum of 2 years. And after those 2 years, so you don't have 5 years like the last time, you can be out of compliance for 2 years, and then at that point a decision will be made about what the penalty will be.
Okay, I like that.
You're not as scary as Steve. I'm sorry. Any other questions? Questions from Potomac or Tech?
Will workshops be online?
So the ones that we have for this semester are not online, although there are plans to develop an online version of the workshops. And it looks like Tracy Beckley is going to come to the podium and actually give some more information about the workshops.
We do have a plan to offer webinars on this topic, as well as having at least one face-to-face visit to Potomac State, hopefully as well to Tech, but that is our plan through our platform that we have.
Okay, thank you so much. So next on the agenda is Dr. Heather Billings, who's the chair of the Teaching Assessment Committee, and she's going to give us an update on the electronic SEI pilot program from last semester. Heather.
Thank you. So overall, I just want to let you guys know that the pilot of Blue went relatively smoothly, so we were pleased with that. There were a few little glitches, which I think most of them had to do with the fact that it was a pilot, and so we weren't sending notifications out through eCampus so that we didn't confuse everyone in every other course at the university who wasn't using it. So we were relying on things like emails getting sent out to students and to faculty with links to log in and to complete surveys. And there were some issues with those emails, we think, going to spam folders instead of actually getting delivered. So those are things that probably won't happen in the real Blue full run when we're actually linking through eCampus, because if an email gets lost, there will still be a direct link on their site. The overall response rates were looking good. Keeping in mind this is a very small number of courses that we're testing, but the overall response rate, the average response rate was a 64%, and the median, I think, was 67%. We had courses that had 100%, 90% response rates. We had a few that had 0. So we had a full range. Compared to all of the courses at the university that used the paper SEI last semester, they had about a 72% average response rate. So we're sort of in the ballpark considering the sample size difference. Obviously, I don't have a good, it's not a really valid statistic to compare those. That was far better than those that used the electronic SEI using the old SEI system. Which was somewhere, I don't actually have that number in my stack right in front of me. I think that was somewhere around 40-some%, which was fairly low. The feedback we got, the faculty generally, I think, found it easy to use once they got in. There were a few login issues, again, because of it being a pilot, and they were in the initial setup, and once those were all sorted out, I think we dealt with that, and they had no problems. On student feedback, there was some feedback that the survey started to get a little too long, and they said questions were redundant, which puzzled us a little bit until we looked back and realized that there was sort of a communication error with the dean's levels questions, that dean level questions were put on that were never reviewed by just the same old ones that have been on for probably a decade or more. All appeared on the survey, adding 5 questions to the survey, and many of them were redundant. So one of our plans for this next semester's transition is to throw out all of the dean level questions, and unless they argue that there's a need for them to include a question or two, and we're capping them at 3, and so if they need to have a question, for example, for an accreditation purpose or so on, then they will get to add back a question. But we're going to kick out all those questions because as far as we are aware, we don't think those deans even know those questions exist anymore, because these were probably 5 deans ago at most of our schools. So it's probably been a lot of transition in that meantime, so we're going to make them actually review them, and that's something that will be brought up by Dr. Turton at the Provost Council. We are also going to rearrange the order of the questions so that if students are getting fatigued from answering too many questions, the ones that are most important to us get asked first. So the 3 P&T questions will be first. Then the instructor entered questions will be next. So we figure those are the ones you guys actually thought were important enough to write yourself. So those will be next. That will be followed by the instructor selectable questions, the ones that are most relevant to your course type. All right, and then will be followed by the remainder of the standard fixed survey questions that we have, and the demographic data, finally with a single comment box. This is something that we looked great on paper when we were looking at the paper versions, mock-up versions, of having a comment section for every breakdown of questions, every sort of subsection of question types. But what happened is when you're working on a mobile device and you start getting a lot of comment text boxes, the students were sort of reluctant to enter a lot of comments all throughout because that was actually getting tedious for them. So going back to a single comment section at the end for them if they so choose to enter questions. So that's how we're going to both reduce the number of questions and make access a little bit easier. Another issue that we had with the pilot that may have also artificially reduced our response rates is that if they didn't actually click submit, and if they didn't complete the survey to the end to get to the submit button, that it didn't actually submit. And so those were not scored. So somebody who maybe went through and answered, the first 5 or 10 questions and then gave up, we didn't get that data at all from them. So we've checked with the Blue staff, and we've ensured that that is something that in the transition in this next semester and so on, that anything that's a partially responded survey, when the survey period closes, those will force submission. So that we should make sure that, and that's something to make sure that the students are aware that if they just partially responded, don't click submit, those are going to get counted. Okay. The last thing that we have coming up as a potential issue is that the short partial semester courses, those that are up to about 6 or 7 weeks long, the training period for the help desk staff isn't until the end of this month, and then time to actually train those faculty and their course or course coordinators for any of those courses. We're concerned that there's not enough time to train them. And so for the courses that end prior to the spring break, we are going to continue the option to use the electronic SEI, the old one, it's a small portion of courses. There's I think there's gonna be about 400 courses that would fit, at least in the short course category, and not all of them end before spring break. But it'd be a small number of courses that we will allow them to continue with that option. And they certainly are welcome to use Blue, and if they're comfortable with brand new technology without training, they're absolutely welcome to go ahead and use it. It's not a matter of not having the system in place, it's a matter of not having the support staff to train them if there is a problem that they need help with. And so any course that ends after the spring break will be in the mandatory transition to Blue, which is the vast majority of our courses. And then I just want to let you also know that for those who have reports in the old SEI system, that will continue to be available for you to access your reports for at least some indeterminate amount of time. I've been told by ITS that what's going to happen with that is at some point it will probably be, their database will probably not be updatable to the point where it will no longer be a security risk. At that point it will go offline, but they will still have access internally. It just won't be out there on the internet for you guys to access directly. So you would have to you'd have to go through ITS to access those reports after that. So it's probably a good time to go ahead and start making sure anything that you haven't downloaded as PDFs, and make sure everybody knows that, for your P&T decisions down the future, get those downloaded and have a backup of those just in case, so you're not waiting for that scramble as you're coming up for a promotion or tenure decision. The idea is that eventually, as this quality measures is being used, they will get transitioned electronically over to that, hopefully before this all happens, but we're not sure what the timeline of all the units moving over to that is, so it's sort of hand in hand. Those two things are kind of, one waits on the other a bit. I think that is the majority. I think that's all the highlights and the main outcomes. And are there any questions?
So just to summarize, the only option after the mid-semester break this semester will be the new system, and there will be training available for faculty to do this. So you're not just left on your own. There will be training, and that will be provided by the sort of info desk or help desk people, and there's going to be a series of courses. It really is not that much different from the current system. So if you have faculty come to you panicked, tell them that help is on the way, okay?
I could actually say from my own experience using it, I included it myself in the pilot. I expect that was probably the appropriate thing to do. And I actually thought it was really intuitive, easy to use. I had, I didn't even need the training. I just kind of mucked about and found things, and it was pretty straightforward. So I thought I think we'll find it's a pretty easy thing to work with. And I think the students had no problem with accessing it either once they got into the system.
So Matt Valenti from Statler. I was just wondering, what plans do we have for getting the word out to the broader faculty about the transition? Is that something that should come from Faculty Senate, or?
I'm going to send a bulk email out probably by the end of this week summarizing what's happening on this, and so everybody should get an email saying this is going to occur. And then I'm going to be talking to the deans in February, and hopefully that will be enough. But anything that senators can do to talk to their colleagues and tell them this is on the way will be much appreciated. And to say, you know, it's there's no need to panic. It will be easy to use, and you know, even though it's electronic, you know, the ability to use any handheld electronic device really will sort of make sure that the response rates are pretty good. And as Heather's showing is, I mean, so long as you are, you know, prepared to put a little bit of effort in and you know, tell the students or give them time to do this like you would a paper survey in class, I would expect the response rates should be pretty close to what they are with paper. So that's sort of one of the key issues. And we, as a follow-on to this, we will be looking into best practices to sort of get response rates up. So if we do find that there's a dip in response rates, then you know, we will definitely address this and make sure that we know the best way to address that issue.
That's actually one of my next steps, is contacting the faculty that were in the pilot that had, particularly those with the highest response rates, and seeing what particularly did they do. I know for my own course, just giving them the 10 minutes that I usually give in class for a paper survey to be filled out, I did that with this course and actually had a higher, probably not, I don't have enough data points to say statistically, but probably not a statistically significant difference, but it was not a decrease. It was definitely a slight increase over previous year's response rates. So I'm fairly confident that just allowing it to be done in class is getting it done. The other thing with the, how getting the word out to the other beyond, for all of those people who don't read every email that comes out to them, and I know I'm guilty of that sometimes too. I think we would talk with ITS, and is Jessica still here? I think we were talking about having the old SEI, when people go to fill it out, that there would be a redirect there, so that if they do go to the old place to look for filling out the forms and creating a form, they will get redirected to the correct new place for the new SEI. And that may be when they start complaining and go, what is this? But it may be the first time they heard of it because they haven't read their email, but we're gonna try everything we can to make sure people are notified prior to that.
Any other questions for Heather? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next, ask Lisa to come to the mic again. We've got couple of issues for the Committee on Committees. So.
Okay, Sir Richard, thank you again.
Yep.
These are coming forward from the GEC committee recommendation through exec to Senate for approval. So what we're talking about is in Annex 3 on today's agenda, and these are the proposed Jeff Oversight Committee charge revisions. But first there has to be a motion to change the name of the committee. So first I would, having given you that background, I would move that Faculty Senate change the name of the General Education Curriculum Oversight Committee to General Education Foundations Committee to reflect the change in the curriculum.
Is there a second? Okay, so are there any questions, points of discussions, comments about this motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the motion to change the name of essentially the GECO committee to the JEFCO committee, please say aye. Those opposed say no. Okay. Potomac State, how do you vote? And Tech, how do you vote? So the motion carries, so we now have a new name.
Subsequent to that motion, I would move that the Faculty Senate accept the newly revised committee charge for the renamed General Education Foundations Committee as listed in Annex 3 of today's agenda. Do I need to read that?
No, I think everybody got it, so are there any questions or points of discussion about Annex 3? So hearing none, all those in favour of approving Annex 3, please indicate by saying aye. Those against say no. Okay, Potomac State, how do you vote?
2 ayes.
Thank you. And Tech, how do you vote?
4 ayes.
Thank you. So the ayes have it and Annex 3 is approved. Thank you, Lisa.
R.I.P. David Bowie.
So next, my pleasure to invite Dr. David Fryson to the podium, along with Mr. James Goins. I don't know if you're coming now or you're going to be called by David, but this is to give us an update on the Title IX issues. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Today's report is going to be from the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. It's just going to be on Title IX. During the executive committee, we tried to do an overview in terms of the other things that we're doing in diversity. But after talking to the chair and the provost, it was decided for time and focus, today we would just look at Title IX. Since the Dear Colleague letter from the Department of Education in 2011, this idea of Title IX enforcement has been a primary issue through institutions really throughout the nation. President Gee and Provost McConnell have really mandated that West Virginia University be a model in terms of compliance, in terms of how we deal with Title IX enforcement. And because of that, institutionally, we have made a lot of strides toward making sure that West Virginia University is really at the forefront of this compliance. Our Title IX coordinator is also our Director of Equity Assurance, and I'll ask Mr. James Goins Jr., our Title IX coordinator, to come and to work us through our Title IX enforcement efforts.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We certainly are thankful for this opportunity to present before this group. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking all the faculty members and administrators that have assisted us with our Title IX efforts over the year, for being resources to our students and for directing students to our office for the appropriate services. So we thank you for that. If you remember last year when we spoke to this group, we started off talking about the importance of Title IX and the need for Title IX training. This year we would like to focus on some of the highlights that we have all accomplished together over the past year. With the assistance of our friends in training and development in the past year, we have facilitated, we actually have trained over 10,510 faculty and staff on Title IX. We've trained 4,637 students, and our office has facilitated 35 live Title IX trainings for anyone who has requested that, whether it's been faculty, staff, RAs, RHCs, athletics. We've completed 35 trainings and will continue to do so for anyone who requests our services. We participated in the revision of our Children on Campus policy, and in doing so, we created a new training module online and trained over 6,213 people last year. As part of the National It's On Us campaign, WVU joined that in 2015.
It's on us to put an end to violence, degrading language, and sexual misconduct. If you have been assaulted or harassed, don't feel guilty or ashamed.
Tell someone. Tell someone. And there are resources on campus to help.
Even if you aren't involved,
but know of an abusive situation,
it's on us to report it.
It's on us.
all of us to take responsibility for keeping our university family safe. It's on us to help.
The university has been involved with over 21 different awareness events, and just to name a few, we participated in the National It's On Us Selfie Week, and we reached over 5,800 students on Facebook. We participated in the showing of what some would call the controversial documentary of The Hunting Ground, and put together a discussion panel to engage our students and community in some of the critical conversations around these topics. We participated in the Walk for Change and distributed over 400 resource packets on High Street, and we engaged our local bars in the Consent Challenge. We also partnered with the University Police, and we put together some self-defense and empowerment programs for our students. And one of the last things we're able to do at the end of the year is to put together a Hugs for Humanity program where 250 resource packets were distributed. One of the things that we're most excited about is this idea of WVU peer advocates. These students truly are a blessing and have been dedicated to providing resources to other students, and we certainly believe they're part of the creation of changing culture on this campus. This program was developed based on a weekend pilot program where the students volunteered their time to learn everything that they could possibly know to be resources to other students. But with the help and the direction of the provost and many other faculty and other individuals, we've been able to turn this into a 3-credit service and learning course because it's probably more appropriate to believe that we could train people better in a classroom setting. We will have 2 courses that are offered this spring. You can see the dates and the time that those will be located. And this will be offered to all students for the first time, open up to all WVU students. This past year, we've trained over 91 students in this Title IX course. We've trained them in everything from all of our Title IX resources, our processes, our policies, our procedures. We talked to them about advocacy. We talked about the criminal justice process, everything that they need to be a resource to another student we put in this course. And in doing so, we've had the peer advocates participate in 47 Title IX resource consultations. And they've been working consistently with RDVIC to live respond to, via the 24-hour hotline, and they've completed over 1,600 iService hours towards the WVU million-hour match. As part of our strategic actions, one of the things that we did at the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is underwent an extensive Title IX audit to make sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to do to make sure we're in compliance with all federal regulations and that we're providing all the services possible for our students. And in doing so, President Gee and Provost McConnell put together a SWAT team, and this SWAT team is led by Vice President Rob Alsop to help us enhance our Title IX efforts. The SWAT team made several recommendations, and one of the recommendations that the SWAT team made is that we hire a Title IX educator. And one of the SWAT team members put it best when he said that we need to hire someone who wakes up thinking about prevention, who goes to bed thinking about prevention, so we can be doing prevention all the time. They also said we should hire 2 senior level investigators. That way we can increase the level of our reports and that we make sure that we have enough staff to keep up with our student, faculty, and staff population. They also recommended that we hire a project coordinator / case manager to make sure we are able to triage all the different things that we're asked to do, that we're completing investigations in a consistent and timely manner, and that we're providing all the resource and documenting the resources that we're providing to our students. Not only did the SWAT team make recommendations, the SWAT team took action. And we're mindful that in a time where the rest of the state is undergoing a budget cut, that the president and the provost made sure that we had resources to do these types of things. So we've hired this Title IX educator, which the SWAT team recommended, which is Mariana Matthews. She's here with us today. We're in the process of hiring the 2 senior level investigators. One of the investigators has accepted a conditional offer of employment. We're in the interview phase for the other, and we continue to search applications for the case manager. And they also provided 2 graduate assistants to help us in all our Title IX efforts. Some of the major achievements that we've accomplished over the past year is we participated in the revision of Board of Governors Policy 31 and 44. We wanted to make sure that these policies are consistent in their definition in their application and to make sure that we are compliant with the new VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act regulations. And in doing so and anticipating those regulations, we redesigned the Student Conduct Board training to accurately reflect and update these revisions and the VAWA amendments. And we designed a specific Title IX board to hear Title IX cases. And the last thing that I want to mention is we continue to consistently develop relationships with local law enforcement to make sure that we're all being victim-centered in our approaches, in our processes, and ensuring that we're not re-traumatizing victims during the course of our process. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, James. Appreciate it. And David. Next on the agenda, report from the Advisory Council faculty, or the Advisory of Council faculty report by Dr. Roy Nutter.
Roy Nutter, Statler College. Two things I guess I should say that you probably already know. One is the legislature is engaged in budget, so it's the money woes that will consume them, I suspect. ACF seems to be on a one track right now that's purely PEIA, and probably rightly so. ACF will meet in January. We'll have 2 meetings for the end of the month. So by next month, I should have some more information for you.
Any questions for Roy? Okay. So next up is the Board of Governors report. Normally that's given by Bob
report
Griffith.
is that I was in Japan when the board met. So.
It's official now. Okay, so since I was at the meeting, I'll give you a brief update. So the candidates for the honorary degrees that were previously approved by this Senate were also approved by the Board of Governors. We approved a BS in Global Supply Chain Management from the College of B&E, and also a MA in Musicology from the College of Creative Arts, which was replacing the Masters of Music in Music History, and I guess that just reflects a change in the terminology. Several of the buildings on the WVU Beckley campus were renamed. There's a long list of them, so I'll spare you the details of that. We approved nominees and alternates for positions on the County Extension Service committees. And as James just noted, the two policies, 31, which is the student conduct and discipline, and Code 44, which is the discrimination, harassment, sexual domestic misconduct, the revisions were also approved by the board. So it was a fairly short meeting. This was prior to the December convocation. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them as best I can. Okay, hearing none. Is there any new business?
Nick Bowman, Eberly. Back in December, Chief Roberts came and talked to us a little bit about talking about campus safety to your students. Well, after that meeting, I emailed him just asking him for any advice on what should the syllabus look like. Like, what could we do to facilitate that process? And through a couple emails, we wrote up a short paragraph and then a 2-page handout of some of their policies. So if anybody's interested in seeing that, I'm more happy to share it with you. I shared it with some of my colleagues that I have regular contact with, but I can stick around for a few minutes. You can find me on the website, last name Bowman, and I'm more happy to share that with you.
And maybe you could email me a copy?
Absolutely, sure.
And then if we want it endorsed by the Senate, we could bring it up at a future meeting.
Absolutely. None of this was official. It was more just for curiosity, but absolutely, I would love to see that be a possibility.
Okay. I have a couple of items, but I won't keep you long. First of all, I hope you noticed that we've gone to a slightly healthier snacking routine here, so there's some vegetables and fruit at the back. I kept some flying WVU cookies there. I didn't want to go cold turkey on anybody, but hopefully this will be the norm for future meetings. And then lastly, on a sort of personal note, this is kind of strange, but I would be remiss if I did not note the passing of a child or a youthful hero of mine. That's David Bowie. He died this morning of cancer. Not that has anything to do with Faculty Senate, but I would just like to at least note that. So, hearing no other new business, is there a motion to adjourn? Second? We are adjourned. Thank you.